This next video is actually relatively easy, but it's one of the things that people most request, which is, okay, I'm really getting tired of gray objects. How do I add some color into my particular model? So we're going to be looking at the quickie material is the basic one, and multiple materials per object. So materials are the things that add color, and eventually we'll have textures as well, which is a picture that wraps around a object. Material is just the basic one though, where we add color into our particular sphere. So I'm actually going to delete this and add in a mesh, which is a UV sphere. Now by default it has this number of segments, rings, size, so on. So let's see, in our tutorial we are going to be looking at actually this one, the multiple materials. Let's just start into that right away. We're going to do 8 segments and 4 rings is what this says. And we can subsurface it again later if we want. 8 segments, 4 rings. So if we go into edit mode, it looks something like that. I'll subsurface this later so it looks prettier. So once we have that, we're going to start by adding a material, a new one, for the whole thing. So I'm going to take this whole thing, go over to the materials, which is I'm using the scroll wheel right now, to the materials, and I'm currently have everything selected. In fact, let's make sure we're in face select. So I'm going to do plus to make a new one. So there's a new material. At the moment it doesn't have anything in it, so I actually need to go down here and add the new material. So the basics of coloring is this thing here. If I click on this, I get my lovely color wheel. I can change the color to whatever I want. So let's say I want some kind of a bright yellow. Specularity, by the way, is reflected color. So if you have a surface that has more of a shiny spot to it, that's what the specular color is. Here we go. A strange yellow sphere. So they've already subdivided the surface, so actually let's go ahead and do that real quick, which is the wrench over here. Subdivision surface. There we go. So it looks smooth, but we're still messing with fewer surfaces. By the way, if I hit apply, it's actually going to make every one of these little vertices, so I want to wait on that until I'm done with my material. All right, so that was exciting, but what if I want another color? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new material and select the side that I want over here. So here's where they talk about, in this particular one, metal versus plastic, and it has to do with the specularity, how much color is actually reflected off the surface. So going back to the multiple materials, the basic idea is I'm going to add another material, this one here, and in particular what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it to a particular set of surfaces. So if I hit those and change this material number 2 here, which I have highlighted there, so you're now bluish, and then I assign it, it takes those parts of the sphere and changes the color to that. So if I want to make this like all the way around, so maybe there, there, and there, and assign this material to those. So I have to have the places selected, the second material I want, and then assign it. It'll do that. So usually by default what happens is whatever the basic material is, this is assigned by default to the entire sphere, and then you use other materials below that to assign to particular portions. So your first material should be your default color. Any other materials you have to assign to particular faces to give it that color. There you go. That's basically it for materials. There's a lot more things that you can do as far as coloring. You can do mirroring, transparency. There's lots of different things you can make the appearance really, make a lot of things that make the appearance change. That's usually done for kind of your finished renderings. I'm not going to go over all the details of that, but this is the basics of coloring.